We're just maybe debating whether a lot of work has to be done to get to this type of place, or whether maybe trying to do a lot of work is what's getting in the way, and it's easier to be accessed. Like, who knows how it works, but to me, it definitely has felt like we've worked very, very hard, and like we finally get to go into retirement.
This isn't your world. Like,
100%.
Just in case.
If you sit down for whatever reason,
and you think that you're not being spoken about,
even if you,
and I was thinking, should I get the dole? Because the only reason I was thinking getting the dole is because they have a mango, pineapple, banana
I've seen that.
flavored one. But then and it said no added sugars too. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But then I was just thinking, like, how do you get banana juice?
I would like to look at the ingredients. I don't care. It tells me it has what or it doesn't have what. Like, I still want to look.
It had a total of 26 grams of sugar in like one of those quarts.
Is it no added like artificial sugar, but added other kinds of sugar? Is it just the sugar from the fruit? I don't know.
I tried to juice a banana.
Tell me about, how did you do it?
I tried to put it in the juicer.
The whole thing.
Yeah, this is when I first got a juice, and like I wasn't thinking about different fruits and how they couldn't be juiced.
Right.
I didn't even think about that. I was just like, oh, just put it in there.
And what happened?
It just chops up.
Just like disintegrates it.
Kinda, yeah. But you don't get much.
It's sort of like oranges. Oranges are so hard to juice. Like, you have to do like the manual squeezing thing.
I know when people go out and they expect for there to be freshly pressed juice, it's like, you don't understand exactly.
Have you ever freshly pressed?
Like what it takes to press juice.
Do you remember all those times that I found myself behind the bar freshly squeezing juices through like a lemon juicer?
Oh, at work. That's crazy.
For sure. For sure. There were just like a few guys who were so insistent on the fresh squeezed juice, and you squeeze that shit.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge difference between freshly squeezed juice and just like flavored juices.
100%. It was like when people looked at us when we were serving brunch at the other place, and they were like, hey, man, I'm paying $85, $89 to eat here. Like, where are the real eggs? It's like, because they are real egg, but the trick is that they're pre-cracked, and we get them in those big ass bags of like 50, 60. So it's not an artificial egg, but it is different than a freshly cracked egg.
Yeah, it's like fresh juices. Like our juice containers said freshly squeezed. Like they were freshly squeezed at one point. At one point, some people squeezed these, and then now they're in a jug and they've been sitting in the fridge for a month. But
with preservatives and whatever else. Yeah, no, it's different. I get it. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, do they have preservatives though? Because
you have to
they go really fast.
They have to.
Like I make like that juice that I'm making here: apple, carrot, ginger, lemon, kale. Like there are no preservatives in there. I don't even know what you would do to preserve. Like I'm not that type of. I don't know what you would even do.
From what I understand, once you make, like, whether heat it up or use it to some degree, fresh fruit or vegetables, you're supposed to use them up between like 3 to 4 days. And just depending on what they smell like, what they taste like, what they look like. But by no means do I think we should have that fresh juice sitting for like a week.
You think a week is
far too long? Yeah, 100%. Unless they had some preservatives. Yeah. I mean, I'd have to do more research, but I know that, yeah, like fruit don't just last that long once they've been essentially like opened, you know?
When we were told to just lie to the guests and tell them that it is freshly squeezed juice, even though it wasn't, there would be some guests that clearly drink freshly squeezed juice.
They're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
So then they would just, as soon as you poured it or that you brought the glass out, they're looking at the glass like, that's not freshly squeezed juice.
Like, but it is, sir. They told me to say it. I promise.
That's hilarious.
That's why I dry snitched that day, and then that's when I learned that term, because I didn't mean to, but I was like, yo, so we're lying to the guests? Turns out you didn't have to lie to the guests. Remember, because we learned that in that meeting. It was just the manager that told us to lie. Yeah, definitely a difference.
How are you feeling this morning?
I feel so good. I feel so relaxed, so at ease, so at peace. Yeah. Always very funny to sit in this room with like the intention of potting versus just walking in here and just popping by for a second. It's just like this cozy little area that definitely feels like a different entity of the house, you know?
Mm.
It's just like this room on its own. It almost doesn't feel like a room is to the left, and then you have the living room, and then you have this, just like, this is it. So it feels nice. No, I feel lovely. How are you feeling?
I feel really good. I'm glad you're wearing the Badu with the
Why is that how you start your answer?
With the hair coming out, because that's what I'm looking at right now. So
why are you glad?
I appreciate the in the house. I appreciate because it says comfort. It says comfort, and as we've known, being at home and being comfortable is very important in life, and it acts as a backbone for everything else.
Yeah.
So in some way, you wearing the head wrap says, I have a firm backbone. I have a foundation, a place I can come and feel rested and recharged and ready to show up in the world the way that I need to.
100%.
Yeah.
I feel beautiful. How else are you feeling?
Cozy is a word that your parents have used. Many people have used in some way, like cozy, tranquil, you know,
relaxing,
relaxing, warm.
Yeah, you know, cozy feels right. I feel like I'm constantly wrapped in just like love and calmness all the time in here. It feels really, really nice.
I do feel much more like a child than ever.
I know,
in my adult life.
I do too. It's kind of weird. Yeah, for me, it just feels like this person is now at the forefront that I've never really met before. So that's a lot of fun for me.
You didn't get to know yourself as a child, did
No.
you didn't. So you don't like remember like how you, because I guess one big thing that we attach ourselves to and our memories to, our sense of self to, are to other people.
Yeah.
And you, as a young person, were not really connecting with a bunch of other small people.
No.
You were in the house.
Right, with just my parents. And my parents, I believe, take pride in my sister and I being well behaved and these like well put together children. But I believe, from what I've been told and from what I do remember, it's because we were just constantly being told, like, be careful, don't fall, don't jump here, don't do that. Like, don't be adventurous. I think I've told you, my aunt has told me that when I was very, very young, I would start screaming if I got something on me, because that meant that my parents would get very upset because I'm a child.
Like some dirt or mud?
Yeah, like food. She said that I was painting one time on like a kid's high chair and I got paint on me. It was like a watercolor, something very, very easy. And I was just flipping out, and she asked me what was wrong, and it was my mom's going to be very upset because I just dropped paint all over me. I was very young, she said. But yeah, no, I didn't grow up around a lot of children. I went to school with children and I played with them there. I had some play dates, but definitely once we moved to the States, that was over. And that was in 11th grade. Age 11.
So what idea of yourself do you have? Do you have none of when you were a child? Like how you feel about that little person?
It just feels like that was such a foreign, faraway entity. Like I remember visuals of that child. I remember always being very independent and being a leader and playing around, but nothing that is more of like a feel thing. Is more of a visual, like an
idea.
Yeah, like I remember.
But you do not feel connected to
No, not at all. So this is something that's very new for me. It's like I'm trying to figure out. So you don't feel
that there's an emergence of something that's coming back that you remember. You're feeling like something completely new.
Yeah, it's like my inner child is finally able to emerge and to be some version, I guess, of what it would have been before, because maybe it would have been very different. Or maybe it would have been pretty close to this. But yeah, no, I definitely don't feel like a connection to a past being. It's more like an emergence of something new. Yeah. Because again, I have visuals of who I was and things that I did as a child that would portray certain characteristics, but I definitely don't have like an emotional connection to this thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I had a very good but weird childhood when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah, you had
Yes,
a lot
I
of
never-
things. You had food, clothes, shelter.
Yeah,
You went
love.
on many trips.
Yeah.
Disneyland.
All the material things,
Yeah,
I think.
all those types of things. You were just also Rapunzel, locked
Also
up
that.
in the tower
Yeah.
in a bit. Yeah, just hanging out with your parents often.
Yeah, like I told you, I don't have one memory of playing with the neighborhood kids ever.
Oh, so yeah,
Like,
that's
not one of them.
okay. See, that couldn't be further from the truth for me.
Yeah.
Like that's all I remember was
None of
just
them.
running around outside every single day.
Mm-mm.
Every single day.
Nothing.
Only days I was in the house, I was definitely grounded. And some of those days I was going to try to get out,
That's funny.
but
Yeah, no, I definitely missed out so much with
so
that.
yeah, so that makes sense. I just said because we're all born, we're pure.
Yeah.
Like nothing has tainted us. And then we start running around and doing some things and hopefully having some fun as a kid. But I guess if you don't even remember just coming up with stories in your mind, like you don't remember just being like, did you just play with yourself? Was it just toys? Was you just creating stories in your mind? Were you just speaking to your parents, and what were they talking about? Like, what did you do?
Well, my parents,
Like,
you know them. They don't really talk about anything.
I mean, you could be talking about the food that
Yeah,
was just cooked, or
but there's 24 hours in a day, right? Like that
or
only takes.
the news, the telenovela that she's watching.
Yeah,
or,
but my
know.
parents have never been people to talk about the news. I honestly don't really remember a lot. Yeah, I think I was just in the house. I told you I lived in a fantasy world for a long time because that's really all I had was just my imagination of what I wanted to do when I got older and who I wanted it to be to some degree, but not really. I remember spending a lot of time. So in Puerto Rico, just on the balcony, I was on the balcony all the time. I had like my Barbie PlayStation there. I remember having a lot of dolls. I was constantly taking care of kids. That was my thing. I had a dog. I do remember way more of a active social life because I went to this private school where everyone kind of knew each other. I remember a lot of play dates. So I did go to places and people did come to the house. But once I was 11, that kind of stunted. But even then, yeah, it was just like my sister and I, some toys, and my parents. So I don't know. There's
When you
a lot.
were 11, is that because you're like, are you starting to look more like a young woman?
Well, no,
that-
that's when I moved to the States.
Oh, okay.
Which means that I had zero contact with people my age outside of school until I got to be 18. Like, none. I was constantly being... Like, I had to either bring Natasha, which obviously I wasn't going to do, so I didn't. Or my parents had to be around somewhere. If they had a brother, like, I couldn't go to the house. So if they had a dad, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really weird. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember a lot. I think a lot of it was just spent in my mind, so that's why I don't remember it. But yeah, no, I most certainly was not able to be a traditional child of just run around and scream and try to figure out anything.
Yeah.
So that's why I have been feeling quite different and quite free in these past few weeks and months.
See, okay,
So
so
I'm
for
running
me,
around just like...
there's been an inner freedom, and I don't know if this was passed down from my grandfather
Probably.
or what, but there was an inner freedom that I've always known
Yeah.
and always wanted to attain, right? And I realized that there was a whole lot of outside world that puts a damper on that thing. And so I like see those things and try to stay away from them, or, participate to the degree in which I felt like I had to at the moment, whatever the case was. But I always knew that there was like this inner freedom thing that I feel like is extremely important. So I guess that's been my journey.
Yeah, no, I definitely.
So me getting to this point and feeling much better, much more childlike, much freer, that this all rings true to me. I'm like, yeah, I know this feeling well. It's just doing it now.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that from you for sure, and that makes perfect sense. Yeah, this has been me as an adult, like figuring out what some sort of childlike version of myself would have been, which is pretty cool. I don't know if it was very different.
I've seen old people wearing hats, and you've probably heard this phrase before, but it's like, don't grow up, it's a trap.
Yeah.
I saw like an 80-year-old dude wearing that hat the other day at work. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
You would wear that.
Yeah, for sure.
When you were 80, yeah.
Dilro kind of spoke about that a little bit on the pod, as he was saying, like, you're gonna get older.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna grow. Like, you don't have to rush that process.
Right.
Like, you don't have to try to be further than you are, like, grow in some way quicker. Like, you don't have to do that, which I thought was an interesting perspective.
It's very true. Yeah, it's one of these things, I see being surrounded by all these young people at work now. It's one of those things that it feels nice to not feel like I want to nor need to give advice or put my opinion forth. They're talking about they're going to do this thing and they're going to go to this college and they have figured this thing out.
All the plans for life.
And chances are you're going to break up with her or she's going to cheat on you and you're never going to make it to that college because you forgot to fill out that application and you don't have the money and you're not even built for it.
They might make it to that college. More so it'll be they'll get there, they'll change their degree or they'll change their major a couple of times, which is completely okay because
that's life.
Because when you're 17, you're trying to get out of high school. Some people are really good and they have great foresight and they know themselves and they're like, oh no, I've wanted to do this since I was 6 years old.
Most people don't have that.
No, but I've met them and they're really, really cool.
No, 100%.
When like they've known this and they've just been on this track since age 6, since age 7, and they just go do that thing. And then there are other people that learn themselves through college, through getting to know people, through having those experiences and those different perspectives. And they're like, you know what? This isn't actually at all what I thought I wanted to do, but I took this little class over here. My friend's taking this class and they talk about these things. Exactly. So then you really, really find like what resonates with you.
You know, so it's all needed.
That makes all the sense in the world. Awakening. There's just awakening to the idea of like a wise like child. Mm-hmm. Is very, very different. There's so many responsibilities that people put on themselves and you get locked out of it. Because that's really all we're talking about is like as you get older, the only thing that really happens is the responsibilities that get put on you. I mean, you definitely start looking at the social pressures, but the social pressures are usually linked to a certain level of responsibility that you've taken on by some age.
100%.
Like that's social pressure really. It's just like, maybe you're young and it's like, well, you're not drinking yet. Like, you know what I mean?
You're not smoking yet.
You're not smoking yet. Or it's like, what college are you going to? We're all signing up for colleges. Where are you going?
What are you doing?
You're getting out of there. Like, like, what are you studying? Are you going to be able to get a job in the job market for that? Like, and then it's like, oh, you're dating? Are you guys going to get married? What's going on? What are you going to do? Are you going to keep renting? You need to buy a house. You're going to buy a house, right? You're going to you're going to need a better job. You're going to get a better job? What are you doing with it?
Are you thinking about children? You think you're going to have children?
Yeah, where are the children? What are you going to do? What kind of school are you going to put them in when you have them, motherfucker? What you got?
It's a lot.
So it's like you're constantly thinking about, the next responsibility I need to take, the next responsibility. I need credit cards. I got to start paying out these loans. I got to start doing this. Right, so then you just start.
It's like a never-ending game. You never achieve anything.
Well, I mean, you achieve, and then you move to the next level, and then you achieve, and then you move to the next level.
Yeah.
If you want to look at them as levels. But anyway, so that's really just the difference between like children and adults. You just start taking on responsibilities. And to some degree, taking on responsibilities is fun. It's nice. You start taking care of other people. Maybe it fills you with,
for sure.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like your children. Maybe you just go and you give your time to a church every week, or you're just out going on missions, helping install water systems to villages that don't get clean water, whatever the case is. And like that just feels good. You taking on the responsibility of helping other people. I get it. And I think doing it that way resonates probably a whole lot more to me than the permanent gig.
Yeah, that I'm all for. You know, I definitely want to donate my time. I have more time now, so I can definitely do that. I just haven't sat down. I've looked through certain places, but
the company that we work for actually has many. What would you call them?
In the meeting, like volunteer opportunities.
Yeah, volunteer opportunities.
I heard that at the orientation I just went to the other day. So I definitely would be, very interested in that. That seems
the bread baskets that we sell, every one of those costs $1, and those go towards these volunteer opportunities. One of which, I don't know if you remember doing the orientation.
Well,
a full meal. Yeah. So a full meal, which is great. Because I was asking about that number. I was like, how do you know? Like, so you're telling me that they buy a basket of bread, and for any of these great American restaurants, and then you're able to make a full meal out of that? Like what are these meals looking like? And she couldn't break it down for me, like what every bean was going to cost or whatever. But she said, this works out. She was like, however they did it, they buy a basket of bread, some child gets a free meal. Right. I don't know exactly how
I was thinking maybe like food costs for restaurants, like since they're getting everything in wholesale, $1 of that wholesale could be a full meal versus like $4 or $5 of whatever grocery shopping we would do, maybe.
And,
I don't know.
And they also make sure, I don't know how many of these that they've built, but they make sure that children have places to play.
Yeah, that's one of those
in the local community. So they're building recreation centers or playgrounds
to play. Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's very cool. No, I love people that do stuff like that.
Just thinking that there was like a neighborhood or a group of children that had nowhere close to go out and play, and then one day there was just like this big playground out there, and it's just like, oh shit, this is awesome! They just built this right next to my house.
That's amazing.
You know.
Yeah, when I lived in South Riding, I saw a playground go up overnight, and it was amazing how packed it was every single summer night. Wild. I mean, those kids were fighting over that place. It's something I didn't really grow up with for the most part. So I do remember like 2 parks that were pretty popular that we went to, but it was always like with my parents. It was never with other children or anything like that. So.
Yeah, I said this to someone also on the pod recently. I think maybe it was Brad, that like so many things boil down to comfort. And there's, as we've read, the comfort crisis. Yep. There's a comfort that makes us all very lazy and just wanting to do the least. But there's this other comfort where if you feel like a child, if you feel comfortable screaming at the top of your lungs or dancing or singing, whatever it is you want to do, there's a youth in that. There's an inner freedom and a euphoria and a looseness and just a happiness just comes along with flow that comes along with that, you know. I don't know, I'm just thinking about being a young person.
That's exactly what I feel. I feel very free. I feel very loose in a way I never have before. So that feels nice, you know. And it's great that it's able to just manifest in such a way that it is contagious. That's
why I like the Badu on your head right now, because it says comfort. You know, and ultimately, if you're going to achieve that childlike version of you in the adult age, you're going to have to be in spaces that you feel comfortable enough being yourself.
Yeah, like the only
know,
place. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, no, I was gonna say long enough to bring that part out of you.
Yeah. The only place I wouldn't wear this Badoo for professional reasons would be at work. But I wear this Badoo out all the time, you know? And I feel very comfortable.
It's hilarious that we just call a head wrap a Badoo.
Thank you, Miss Erica Badu. That's so funny. It just makes sense to call it a Badu. If you know, I guess you just know. But yeah, no, I feel great. I feel wonderful for what this has been able to provide, you know, for our relationship. It's been very cool. For us to just feel very free. And to get to a point, I wonder if this is sort of life for people. And some just get to access this, some don't, some takes a bit longer, but sort of like that guy wearing that hat. If people, for the most part, or everyone to some degree, is just searching to reconnect with this thing, you know,
this childlike,
yeah, whether on purpose
fervor.
or not. Because it feels like it just provides so much more than freedom, you know, and just connects a lot of other things.
It is the interconnectivity of the never-ending moment. Right? It is the integration of that. Not necessarily, this is what's interesting about all those Alan Watts
I was just
videos.
thinking about that.
Is not necessarily for the sake of integrating into trying to heighten one's consciousness.
Right.
Right? Because when a child does things, a child doesn't do it for those reasons. It just does it because it's fun, because it feels good in the moment. They're reading the moment and they're going with it. And we get away from the moment. Like, we're thinking about the future, which is going to be, when it gets there, the moment.
Right.
Right? If it comes, it's going to be the moment. And you're going to have to treat it like every other moment, which is either you can be there for, or you could think about the next moment that you're trying to conjure
How
up.
funny, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what children are going through. Like, children, they're not planning for 10 years ahead. They're not. They're just not doing that shit. Like, it's just, they're just there, like, just in the moment, running around.
And this is what we're doing.
Just flowing, doing stuff. If you ever really think about, I don't know how often you do this now in your life, but ever try to try to write a script of a future conversation that is going to happen?
I've done
Like,
that a
you
few times.
like try to plan that out a bit. In my mind, immediately upon trying to do that, like, I'm talking about 1 second in, if even that long in, it immediately reads to me as incorrect. Like, this is like, there's no point. Every time I even think about trying to do it, I'm just like, well, that's like, we can ponder it just for shits and giggles, but it reads inauthentic, wrong, not going to happen every single time. Because I just know that that's the case. Like, yeah, the way that you make stuff up in your mind is just not reality. It's just not the way that life actually is. It's
Right.
just a narrative that you're telling yourself to hopefully, like, make you feel better about, like, what's to come. Just like, it's not going to happen like that. And then, like, once you get there with the person, you realize it just wasn't that thing. It happens every single time.
100% of the time.
Because you're not factoring in what type of sleep you or the other person got, what food they, like, what their diet looks like that day, how they're feeling, if they walked out and saw a butterfly fly off a
Right.
flower in front of the sun, and that could have changed their whole feeling about the day, the whole tone of what's going on. You just don't know what's going on. Like, it's all just these sequential moments.
You just reminded me of when we went to the post office, whenever that was. And there's this guy just acting a fool and kind of threatening, but not really, these workers. And
Yeah, it was an implicit threat of sorts.
Yeah, for sure.
He
Just
got aggressive.
Cursing women out, calling them assholes.
Yeah.
Pretty wild. But something I think that everyone in there was like, yo, what is this guy going through? Like, what is his life like? Like, what was his... And this was what? The day before Christmas, too?
I believe this was the day before Christmas.
Yeah.
It's not like 2 days before. Something like that.
It was like right before Christmas time. he wasn't having our morning or anyone else's morning in there. You have no idea. Absolutely no idea.
Well, look, we walked out of the post office and I saw the guy in his car for a second.
Just laid
and
back.
He was just it did not look like it's not like he left from cursing out the whole post office and got back in the car and felt great about that sequence of events. You know, people will try to fool you into that, into thinking like, oh, fuck you, fuck the world. I just say what I want. I'll do whatever I want to do. And they have this cowboy,
for sure,
sort of thing about them, this bravado, and that can go for women or men, by the way. But that's just not fun. Like not on the inside, yeah. Like when you have to go back and sit alone, it's not fun. Regardless of the smile they try to put on in front of you, like that's not a fun existence. Like it doesn't feel good to do that on the outside, unless you're legitimately like psychopathic. Like I don't know what that experience is like, but for the most part, human beings are not treating other people poorly, being thrown out of establishments in front of people because of them simply existing in there in the way that they currently are able to exist. And they just go about life looking at themselves in the mirror, just being on a drive by themselves and feel great about the way that they are navigating this life. It doesn't really happen.
Yeah, no, that guy looked like he was not having a great day in his car. That's for certain. You know, I feel very lucky to be able to come from this place these days. Feels very good. Feels very calm. Yeah, just like kind of floating, chilling, having a good time, accomplishing some things here and there.
Accomplishing some things here and there.
Definitely don't feel like I have the weight of the world on my shoulders, you know. Just Tuesday morning having some mimosas. Yeah, and like you said, we've talked about this many times throughout the weeks and months, and just not really trying to figure out, but just maybe debating whether a lot of work has to be done to get to this type of place, or whether maybe trying to do a lot of work is what's getting in the way and it's easier to be accessed. Like, who knows how it works, but to me, it definitely has felt like we've worked very, very hard and like we finally get to go into retirement when it comes to like internal and interpersonal happiness. Because it has not always been like this. You know, I think about it, and as cheesy as it is, like our mornings are just filled with so many laughs, so many funny childish tackles and hugs and kisses and just funny little sayings. And it's every morning, you know, and all of those motions also, I think, help negative interactions between us and maybe me getting a little spicy. So I think, yeah, just I wonder where that would have been able to fit before. This was never there before for us. So, I don't know.
I think you have to be okay with letting other people be who they are.
Yeah.
Right? I think in order for that to happen, there may be a good chance that you have to be okay with letting yourself be who you are.
Also that.
Right? And kind of have to be unapologetic about it. To some degree.
Yeah. You want to do a quick bathroom break? What do you think about it?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, comfort is really what's on my mind these days. You know? It's like me getting my parents those UFAs for Christmas. I was really excited about them. It's like, you guys have never felt anything like this. And I have never felt anything like how I feel now living my life. You know? Like we always joke about how our relationship has felt. How I feel about just existing in the world with other people. allowing them to be who they are, you know, and interacting with them if I want to, and if not, just walking away. That feels really nice. Like they can always be themselves. Because I'm either going to be here or I'm not.
Oh, yeah. You used to struggle with
so much.
With like not existing in the same space as someone that.
I'm like, why are these people breathing around me?
Yeah.
That was huge for me. You know, when people were just being themselves and being silly like I am being now. Like, why are you doing that? Like, why are you behaving that way? Be an adult. Grow up. So it's funny to think back and to be here. Because I feel like I'm way more of a fun person the older that I have become.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel way more light, more lively, healthier, funnier. As silly as it is to say, I catch myself often making myself laugh. And I've never felt that before.
That is pretty funny.
I've never just like said things and then thought, oh my God, like that's actually pretty funny. So that's a lot of fun. What are you thinking about?
No, you're getting to know yourself in a different way. It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird that this is happening now as I'm about to hit 28 years of life. It's very peculiar. It's also very weird. I know you're in your 30s, but to think that I've hit, like I'm going to be out of my 20s. I don't know. Like I have so little connection with time. Like I almost have no connection with it. I don't know what that means. So I feel like I should feel older, but I definitely don't. I feel much younger than I ever have. So again, maybe this is something that happens to everyone. But it just manifests differently. It's a very, very interesting time to just exist.
I'm just listening. Yeah, I'm just looking at you.
What goes on through your mind as you listen to me?
Nothing at all. Like I legitimately have nothing. I'm just listening to what it is you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I got for that. I feel good. I feel thankful. I feel grateful. I feel fun.
Yeah, I feel very normal. That's what it seems like. It seems like there's like nothing spectacular and everything extraordinary is happening at the same time. Everything seems very, 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 very regular. Like very regular, very simple life. I don't do much that I feel like is wildly extraordinary, but I feel like something extraordinary is truly happening at the same time.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, by no means, like, if we speak about our life, is it super exciting to most people, I feel like.
Pickleball, trying to find some nice places to hike out. Shrooming.
For sure.
Often. Coffee in the mornings.
A little bit of work.
You know, get some food.
Video
every
games.
now and again. Good video games recently. That's always really nice.
Yeah, video games is something that I'm very thankful for. I'm only about 8 months into this video game world, and that has changed my life for the better. That has been pretty cool. Didn't know that existed.
This whole world.
Yeah.
I don't really... Maybe at a point in time, I was also, you know, some prick, some pretentious asshole when it came to this. Yeah, like video games. Like, why would you spend your time playing video games? They are literal masterpieces. They're works of art.
They're like the coolest puzzles.
For anyone that likes to sit and look at a painting, like you would go to a museum. See, and this is where things get interesting. Like
that's a cool art.
People will go to a museum and look at a painting and think, "Oh my gosh, like this inspires me so much. Like it's so beautiful. Look at the way it was painted." But you're looking at a video game that has 1 million of those in an experience. You can just move the camera angle around and just look up at the sky. Fly around, look at the water, look at the houses in the distance, beyond the trees, in the sunset. Like it's constantly happening, and you have a storyline over top of that, and you have gameplay on top of that, and you have all these intricacies. So to frown at video games like they're not works of art is kind of wild. It's very pretentious.
I don't trust you if you say something like that.
You
That's
just
easy for me.
you just don't know. That's all it is. Like you
Right.
you haven't had that perspective brought to you. You haven't really like taken time to be wowed. There's music overlay. Like there's layers to art and beauty in a video game.
Because that's something I've never felt. I've always said like video games are not for me and no, I don't play them. But I never really thought that like they were a waste of time. Like I never really judged anyone for playing them. I was like, yeah, like I don't play video games because I don't know anything about them. So if you're just actively judging people who play them, it's like people who only read
We talk. I talk about this.
fiction versus non-fiction versus fiction. So
Yeah, it's just like, oh, I don't want to read a story.
what are you talking
Like I
about?
don't have time for. Like I want to learn something. I want to learn about a time in history, or I want to learn about the brain, or I want to learn about the mind.
You know, people do the same thing with like documentaries, TV shows, and movies. It's like, oh, I only watch like documentaries,
Documentaries,
and National
docuseries.
Geographic. You know,
Yeah.
like I don't want to spend too much time.
There's always a line in the sand.
It's so funny.
No matter what it is, there's always a line in the sand.
It's so funny. It's that hierarchy every time.
Yeah.
It's always that's something. One of my favorite things I've learned about Jordan Peterson. It's just that, like, it doesn't matter where you are, or what you do, or what animal you are. There's always going to be a hierarchy formed. Whether it's just algae, there's superior algae versus not. Like, some algae just has all the qualitative natures it needs to just suppress everything else around them.
Yeah, the way he explains it has always been interesting because it makes all the sense in the world.
100%.
Like he's like, everybody needs to be able to play a lot of games.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you just have one game and there's just a few winners, like that's no good. But since we have so many different domains in life, so many different things you can do, there are a lot of different games you can play. But as soon as you open up any single domain and everyone's allowed to play in it, there are going to be people that excel.
100%.
There are going to be people that are better than the rest. And you're going to have a hierarchy, boom, immediately. No matter what. There are going to be people that are good and people that suck, and there are going to be people in the middle.
It's amazing. No, it's
No
very,
matter
very
what you do.
interesting.
No matter what you do. Yeah. Yeah, Jordan Peterson, he's been a father to a lot of people,
For sure.
you know.
A gem.
Yeah, he's been a father for a lot of people. In a world that makes sense, a secular world that needs grounding,
Yeah.
where people don't know how to get it or where to get it.
Or just maybe it needs to be explained through a different set of words than it has been explained before, which is just a lot of what he's doing.
Yeah, which his is very thoughtful.
Yeah,
Very thoughtful
very broken
philosopher.
down.
Interestingly enough, because a lot of these childlike whims and things that we're talking about is kind of like the opposite in a sense. And maybe you think a lot to get to the point of no thinking. It was, or just not overthinking. During that year, 2020, so I read a lot of books, right? So
You read so
I
many
read
books.
something like 70 books that year,
Crazy.
60, 70 books. They're all very, very dense books. So I turned inward to a lot of information and a lot of pondering and thinking that needed a lot of processing. And I feel like one in particular was the Nathan C. Schaefer book, Thinking and Learning to Think.
Mm,
You like train yourself
right.
to think things through on a very deep level. And so already on the track that I was on, like doubling down on the thinking tool to constantly like move through everything, like to train yourself to think, to try to then either use that tool to get to a point of relaxing the thinking or having to work backwards to try to get to a place where you're not constantly thinking is fascinating endeavor to be on.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, I don't really have a lot because I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, I mean,
know-
yeah. I mean, it's also not necessarily been your experience to try to wrestle through constant thoughts?
Yes and no. Because there was a constant wrestling of trying to figure out like what is happening, how I interact with it, and then how I would like to interact with it. Sort of like seeing myself for the first time and realizing that this is how I react versus respond to things, or this is how I am walking in general, whatever it may be. And there's a lot of trying to think, why does this even happen this way? And I'm not even aware of it. How do I fix it? How do I catch it? How do I apply anything towards it? And that took up a lot of my life and my time. But it looked very different than what you were doing.
It looked very different. That's what it is.
Yeah, it looked very, very different. But it was still some degree of that. It was still trying to figure out how to think some things through. Maybe definitely not everything, but certainly something. Yeah, and again, I don't remember like the exact point where things started changing and the direction started to become different and the intention was also changing. But here we are. It's kind of, I mean, like I told you the other day, maybe that's how all of these books have been able to just keep getting released and just existing in general. Like Siddhartha, Illusions and Alchemist. You know, these are sort of all the same idea. And it has to look very different for different people, but you have to start somewhere. Maybe some people, for some reason, have some things figured out way before. Like, they never have to do the 10 years of Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson, to just kind of let that sit in the back rooms of your mind versus the forefront of your mind. Who knows? Yeah, it just kind of almost seems like a blur. Then it's been about 4 years. 4 years is a long time.
Yeah.
You know, since all of this started. And the practice is looking different. The day is looking different.
Yeah, there's a muscle memory that comes with doing things a lot. Playing basketball, dancing, singing. And when you're graced with someone that has that control, like you listen to, I don't know, fucking early 2000s, I think that was when she was popping, Christina Aguilera.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you listen to something like that, or, you know, an Adele.
Like I showed you, Kiki Wyatt.
You know, I wish I knew some ballerinas, because I'm certain that they would exemplify this better than what I'm trying to say right now.
I know Misty Point is like an important black ballerina. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. When they exhibit this control, this grace, they know what to do. And when you are integrated with this concept of everything being situational, like nothing being the same as the last thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you having to be, or not having to be, but understanding that you are a part of that situation, right? Every time. You're not sitting on the outside of the situation. Like, you're a part of the situation that you're experiencing. And being a part of that situation, awakening to every moment in that situation being as delicate as it is.
Mm-hmm.
And like knowing how to pay attention in that moment and flow with that moment. I don't know, however seems fit in that moment, whatever is fitting for that moment. That's a whole new gear. That's a whole new mode to be a part of, to go into every moment thinking like, okay, like this is just me in this moment happening, and you're feeling it out, and you're getting that grace of those singers or those ballerinas. So now, instead of relying on this foreshadowing, this constantly thinking of what is to come when I'm in this next conversation with this person, or whatever it is, that thing that you're thinking about, just ending up there and allowing this muscle memory to work out. So instead of, it's like Lamont talked about it here. He's like, if you know your lines, if you read over the script, you know your lines, then you can act. If you don't know your lines, you can't act because you're just going to be worried about the lines. Like you're just constantly thinking like, oh, I'm supposed to walk over here, say this thing, do this thing, boom, cut scene. But like you're too worried, so now it's all jumbled up and it's clunky because you're trying to figure out the thing. But if you know the thing, and you're aware and you enter this flow state where you and the thing, you stop thinking that they're different things.
Right.
That you and the dance are different. You and the dance aren't different. You're the same thing. You know, you and the painting are not different things. Like you are part of that. So whatever it is that thing is. The cool thing about this is that people can understand this because for the most part, all humans have felt a flow. Like you've done something in your life where you were just in a flow state, like nothing else mattered but that thing. So that's cool because it's easy to explain to people in that light that the same thing exists,
Right.
but just for life in general.
For sure.
So instead of just thinking it's something you can achieve when you're cooking food or you're on a run or whatever it is, that thing that you do where you lose yourself in the thing, that there's that on top, layered over top of life. And you can feel this flow of you just moving around, interacting with every situation as the situation is itself, not something that you thought the situation was going to be, or you're anticipating it to be, or you've seen in the past. Like it's just, no, this situation right now. Like this is the first time that myself and these people or these things have been here at this point in time. This has never happened before. No moment will ever happen ever again.
Right.
So to constantly treat it as though it's some other moment, especially some moment in the future that you really don't know what the fuck that's going to be like, is kind of counterintuitive when you really think about it.
Yeah, it's as we always think about and talk about.
But then it's weird because when you're in it, you don't feel like you're doing anything. You just feel like you're just living.
Yeah.
You know, that's the conundrum, and that's the beauty of the idea that superior virtue is not virtue, for the sake of trying to be superior.
Right.
Like you don't become this beautiful blossoming ray of light because you're trying to be that. Regardless of what state it's taken for people that we admire.
Right.
Usually like those people, when you see them or you hear them, you can just tell they're just existing.
Right, they're on a different plane, yeah.
They're just existing and you just, you admire it. You are attracted to it.
It's always the same people we speak about. That come to mind. But yeah, that's a hard one. I'm calling my parents yesterday because I was testing my line after I got activated because I don't have iPhone. So I was like, if it goes through, then it's perfect. And my dad answers. He's like, hey, how are you? I was like, I'm great, calling about my phone. I was like, what are you up to? He's like, getting ready for tomorrow. And I was like, well, what's tomorrow? He was like, well, I have to work tomorrow. I was like, oh. I was like, didn't you just get off? It's like 6 o'clock. Also, he works from home. So he's been at the house all day. And he was like, yeah, but it's just you get off work to get ready for the next day. Can't wait for the week to be over. And it's Monday. And that's just how they are all the time. They're trying to fall asleep early so that way the day can be over and we can just move on to the next.
Have you gotten evidence of that still, like within the past 6 months? Like, is that still or are you recounting something that happened a year ago on a phone call?
No, this happens all the time.
They're trying to go to sleep early thing?
Yes.
In particular?
This has been going on. This will never stop.
Like, you've heard these words. Is
Yes,
what I'm saying. I just want to make sure.
Yes, no, it comes from both of them. You know, like if for some reason they called me and I called them back later at night, I know 8 or 9 is like a good time in bed, like waiting to go to sleep. It's like, hey, like, what's mom doing? Oh, she's taking a nap. She's bored. You know, just constantly trying to sleep life away. Just, yeah, but they're constantly looking for the next thing. You know, it's
That's some funny shit. Trying to sleep life away is so funny.
Their life sounds so miserable.
Trying to sleep life away is funny as hell.
You know, because he's asking like, what's our week looking like? What are we up to? And I was like, listen, man, we've been playing pickleball, hanging out, doing this, doing that. Took a nap. Went to the gym.
Yeah, naps be coming for sure.
And he's like, oh, like, I just, like, you know, it would be so nice to have a job where, like, I could enjoy it. And so on and so forth, instead of saying blah, blah, blah. But it's always the same. My dad has been unhappy with his job for probably a decade plus at this point. Won't take a pay cut. Won't apply maybe as often as you should. He just believes that things should be different, therefore they should. And that's just not how life works. So, yeah, just let him talk. Let him talk for a moment. You know, you have mom waiting for her next trip to Puerto Rico because going 3 to 4 times a year is just not enough. You know, like, she'll be gone for 3 weeks.
I'll tell you what. Your mom...
What about her? She is something else.
Yeah,
she's so special.
She's
so
definitely
special.
have a charm about her in the fact that she is a simple woman.
The simplest.
All she cares. It's honestly like when I think about your mom.
You think of a child.
I think of a very particular. And maybe this is the way I ought to think about people, but a very particular program that was written.
Yes, she doesn't have a shared software.
It doesn't seem like it's going, like what she's programmed to do, it's not going outside of that.
Nah.
Like she's going to throw some parties.
She's going to clean the house.
She's going to bring some get-togethers together and she going to do them right. She's going to have the food right.
Gift bags for everybody.
Gift bags ready. Decorations for sure. Just the ambiance in general. She gonna have all
prizes,
of that.
All of it.
Prizes. She gonna have all of that
for sure
figured out. She gonna call you, talk to you, right? She gonna go to Puerto Rico. She's gonna party with her friends,
with the mayor, all of them.
Right? She gonna do. She live a little lit life. She like it, you know. And that's where she's at.
That's her bag.
That's her bag. She don't care to talk about none of that shit that you talking about.
Nothing.
Right? She don't want to hear none of the stuff we talking about on this podcast. But that's her bag, and there's something charming about that. Like that is where she's at.
Yeah, it's like
that's what she likes.
She's beautifully limited. You know? Because it is. I think it's so fascinating.
Beautifully limited is funny.
Because I think she's very limited. You know, it's almost like there are some things missing. You know?
Like there are a couple parts. Like,
like some things just weren't.
But it seems like she's like in a good place.
She is.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. I've heard people say this since we brought his name up about Jordan Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was brought up on the JRE.
Okay.
Between Joe and someone else. But that it may be impossible for someone with the intellect of a Jordan Peterson to just be happy. Now, I don't necessarily agree with this. I just think that it's something that I've heard people say you're way too just psychologically active to be happy.
I wonder what would happen if he took some shrooms.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, if no one offered Jordan
a microdose,
is he gonna do him
3.5 grams, something, and just like let him sit with himself? And let's see.
He gonna come up with some ideas.
He'll be thinking for a decade.
Man.
Yeah, no, I think shroom. I would like to see what he's like after shrooms.
Yeah. You know, and then on the other end from Jordan Peterson, we have your mom. And I just feel like I don't know if she's just. See, it'd be different if. Okay, all right. Here we go. Let's get into this. We just assume, or people think that if you're not thinking on this super hyper intellectual level, like that maybe you're happier because ignorance is bliss, right? But that doesn't seem to be the case for people that are cognitively impaired or just slower. It doesn't seem like things are just cool. Seems like there's still a lot of problems,
For sure.
right? And still sadness and boredom and these things taking place. Now, interestingly enough, I met someone, I forgot what her name was, but she worked Ferusa, that was from Kazakhstan.
I remember Ferusa, yeah.
And she said that she loved America so much because when she came over here, she realized everyone just, for the most part, people smile at each other when you walk down the streets. That's not something they do in her country.
I remember you saying.
So she just starts seeing people smile at each other and wave, hey, how you doing? She's like, oh my gosh, like this is so nice. Like you can smile at other people. Because where she's from in Kazakhstan, smiling and walking around like you look stupid. Like she's like, like people, they're looking at you like, why are you smiling, idiot? Like what is?
What's going on?
Yeah, like why are you just smiling? It's a stupid thing to do. Is just to smile. I kind of forgot where I was going with that. Smiling.
Simpler things for certain cognitively.
Oh, right. So the point being is that for a lot of people, someone just being, like if you think about it in your mind right now, someone that's just gleeful, often, you might think, oh, they're simple. Like they're a little simple. Like you're just like gleeful often. Like you're probably stupid because maybe you're not thinking, like your mind doesn't allow you to think about a bunch of things that would make you unhappy, right? So a lot of times there's this hard-nosed thing about like maybe intellectual isn't that happy or that gleeful, that whimsical, that childish, It's funny ideas that we have about things. But I think that you could probably find that piece either way. I think a lot of it does have to do with the lack of thinking. So what's interesting is it's not that your mom isn't thinking.
Right.
It's not that. She's thinking about some things.
For sure.
She just could be thinking about the next trip, the next thing. So she's thinking, and those thoughts still are bringing her these comments, on the phone with you of, oh, I just want to go back to Puerto Rico. I'm trying to go to sleep so I can wake up tomorrow and, cut some hours out of this day. So it's interesting, like, regardless of where you are in the spectrum of like cognitive power, you're still going through it if the heart of the thoughts are still trying to figure out the future, like the next thing, or trying to facilitate something is beyond the abundance of the moment.
The present moment. Right. That's well put. That's beautifully put. No, 100%. Yeah. I do often wonder what my life would have been like if my mom raised me as a single mom.
Ooh.
Not good. She just doesn't have it. She doesn't have it. She doesn't have the best financial literacy. She's always had a man at the helm. She's been married before my dad, and he was the one that took care of things. She just kind of always sat in the back. She was a secretary. She went to secretary school. She's been a receptionist places. My mom hasn't worked in like 30 years.
Yeah. Some people they don't want to be at the helm.
But let me tell you something. I get it. Because the more I get settled into this life, I'm like, oh, Earl.
Like, it's nice when I don't have to.
I don't mind cooking, cleaning, doing the things, booking the pod, whatever has to be done. If I get to stay in here 24/7.
I was listening to that episode of the Pocket Watch podcast. Those guys that I follow,
What episode?
Well, it was when I was in here trying to figure out some Adobe
I remember
preset
that,
stuff,
okay.
but it had this young lady on there that was a nurse, I believe.
Surfer?
I think she did a lot of things.
Okay, it was
I think
maybe
she was like a
Asian?
surfer and a nurse.
Yes, I
and
remember.
a
That's
lot.
very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And she was talking about how she is attracted to being able to turn her brain off. She's like, listen, it's not like I'm lazy. I go to school, I work as a nurse, I surf, I do a lot of things. She's like, I'm constantly doing things. It's just nice to know that if I want to turn my brain off, it'd be nice for there to be a person that can facilitate the things that need to be done with a brain that is active. So I understand what it is you're saying.
Yeah.
Like you do things. It's not like you just don't do things and you just
sure.
like lay it out on the couch waiting for Earl to walk around and do shit, because that's also not going to work either.
No,
You know?
no.
So, but there are things that you know where you can just shut it down and, going back to the word, feel comfortable just letting go.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's so important. You know, I really hope that people who are in relationships that live together are able to find that space, because it's so nice. It's just cozy and perfect. And
You mean the space where both participants like can shut off?
yeah, where there's
moments?
a balance,
Mm.
you know, where, yeah, people can, like, both parties can meet themselves where they are and kind of adjust to that. I've always told people that has been my biggest compromise. Outside of all the compromises that I've made. When we first got together, the big one was you not being affectionate, which is very interesting to think about that now. And how I thought that that was going to be like my compromise that I would have to swallow in order to be in this relationship. And I did. It took me a long time. And I swallowed that shit and I was like, fuck it, it is going to be what it is. But my real compromise in this relationship has been moving in and having to let go of how I was going to upkeep the house. I could have dealt with you not being affectionate for the rest of my life. That's easy.
Which has changed. I'll put that on
Which
record.
also is the most affectionate. The most. It's so great. I love it. But yeah, the house one, that was huge. That was by far the hardest compromise I've ever done. Yeah, it's just because I think what people kind of get messed up a little bit, and maybe that's why breakups happen or divorces or whatever. I don't believe technically that it should be one person adopting to one or the other. You know, it's like, because I want it this way, this is how you should do it. It's just finding out how badly you really want things done that way and what that means for both parties. So, like, maybe we should reframe this version of events. Like, when you clean here, this is what it will look like now versus how it did before. Yeah, relationships are really hard, man.
It's
They're really
it's
freaking
the
hard.
narratives. So I went out to Dave and Buster's, as you know, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And was with two people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was I was on shrooms. It was such and just visually popping experience for me to be. I cannot explain it enough, because I was taken away from the ego.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just experiencing the lights and the sounds and the overall levity of a Dave and Buster's. Okay, it's just a beautiful place. Food, drinks, little kids running around, fun games for adults to play. Like, it's a great time. And to be with these people that I love to death, awesome people, but they're in their heads about what's taking place at the moment. Like, who is one of these two people a third wheel? Are they both a third wheel at some point in time? Just like weird irritations that would arise. And from my lens, the reason this hit so hard for me is because from my lens, I'm looking at what I feel like is reality. I'm just seeing the potential for greatness in this beautiful establishment made for fun. And these two people not necessarily being able to enjoy it at the capacity that they could because they're in their heads about whatever the case is, right? And I don't even know that this is happening. I'm just enjoying myself until I start to slightly catch some energy shifting and some people walking away. It's just weird things taking place if you just look close enough. And then lo and behold, later on, the information was told to me by both parties. But I just say that to say when it comes to you and what you expected when you came in here, how you were going to upkeep the house, and it shit just had me thinking. It's not like it was a new piece of information that I'd come across, but just the salience of it again, of so much of our distraughtness is just a ripple in this narrative that you've concocted in your mind. It's not, we forget that just what we're looking at attached to our feelings is not reality. Like there's our lens on things.
Yeah.
Unless we get a hold of looking at things without our egos attached to them, that exists.
Right.
And so just being able to see, wow, like how much of our just distress every day is just built because of our expectations of the day, like what should be the case, whatever has been cooking up in your head versus actually just taking the day as it comes and realizing that this is what life is today. Like this is what I'm doing at the moment. It was very, very profound of an experience. It seems very regular, like everything else I say. Go to Dave & Buster's, two friends. A couple of them felt like they were third wheel or felt kind of weird about the way that we were leaving,
right,
and when we were going to get food afterwards or where we were going to go to get the food, whatever the case is. And then you just get weird energy. Somebody starts walking out of Dave & Buster's. We start walking after them. Then we kind of like have this weird moment up front where we're trying to figure out who's getting in whose car and who's going away. Like, it's just weird stuff that's going on. And I'm just like, wow. Like there's nothing wrong with the actual formulation of the space of the matrix, the space in the matrix that we're in.
Stories.
It's just the stories that these people are telling themselves that just have an overlay on what's actually happening.
You know,
it's like, fuck, that's so wild to look at.
It's crazy to think about it as someone who experienced Rut stories like my whole life until recently. Because they're so powerful. They take over everything. What is that book? Reconcilable Differences by whom is
Donna Markova and someone else.
Yes, Donna Markova. That they have a visual representation of rut stories, and it's exactly that. It's just making a rut in a river where it just wasn't even there before. Things were flowing, and then you try to stop it. I'll take some more of that. Yeah, it's just really hard. And again, I don't know what would be helpful for people like them. I'll take a little bit more juice to get out of the way of that. It's weird. It's weird, this conundrum. I don't know if I'm doing a good enough job of explaining it, of, thank you. How funny it is that it seems as though I worked so hard to come back to this very simple, like a rudimentary place.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
Because it feels
people
like I'm speaking in very loose terms.
You're saying that you are. People are saying that well, you said, oh, maybe we're all trying to find that childlike thing again, right? People call it God. People call it all sorts of things. At the end of the day, what it seems like is peace.
Yeah, that would make sense.
At the end of the day, like what you're going to God for something. You're going to money for something. You're going to music for something. Like everyone's trying to find, like they're trying to find something in something. I think it's peace in something.
Peace sounds right.
You know, peace. So sometimes people are going through thoughts. You're trying to go through as many thoughts as it takes to reach peace. And well, if I think hard enough for a long enough amount of time, I'm going to think through things. I'm going to think through them all, and I'm going to find peace. I'm going to find the thing. I'm going to find the thing. I'm going to find the answer. That's what people are doing. They're reading books. They're listening to podcasts, having conversations, trying to find peace. You know, they're attaining things, trying to work harder, work out, get a nice bod, get a nice job, money, security, whatever. You're trying to find peace in all of this. So, you know, like those books, like Illusions, like The Alchemist. For some people's story, it's going to be just working really, really, really hard for a long time to learn to stop working so hard for any time.
But that's the thing is, like, I feel as though you also don't know that you're working really hard to stop working so hard.
No, you don't.
But because all of a sudden I'm here, and I don't know how I went from all of that to here. 4 years have gone by. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's like the like stacked lessons. Like lessons start to stack up on top of one another.
Yeah, things start just merging.
And they're slowly merged together. They slowly like marinate enough. Like the more and more you stack them on top of one another.
It is weird feeling like a bit internally wiser as you get older. Mm-hmm. That feels very odd. Again, I've never felt like
internally wiser.
Like I feel wise, like to and for myself. Not like to and for people around me. Like I don't walk around thinking, oh wow, like I have figured that out. It's more so like, oh, I know exactly where you're coming from.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out, are you saying that you have a familiarity with yourself? Is that what you're saying?
I guess you could say that. It just feels like I'm much older than I am. It's like I went from being a 13-year-old to an 80-year-old woman overnight for some reason. Yeah, just being in a space now where a lot of people are much younger than me. Anywhere from like 10 to 7 years younger than me, a lot. And there's a huge discrepancy in like what someone is thinking, feeling, or acting when you're this age versus when you haven't experienced those 10 or 7 plus years. And I just feel like a bit older, even though I'm also connecting with this younger person, which is very interesting. Yeah, I just feel like I've experienced some things as a younger person that now looking at young people where I was and however many years ago, I recognize a lot of myself in them. And I recognize a lot of things that obviously they would never recognize because you're 19 or 21 doing whatever it is that you're doing. And you've never thought about this thing. And you have to go through whatever it is that you're going to go through to figure some things out, hopefully, in the future. Yeah, I guess really all I'm saying is that I feel very at peace. That's more so the crux of it. Does that make sense?
I don't know.
Well, Mikey, let us know if that made sense. But
yeah, no, I have no idea. No, I have no idea. It's all very meta. It's just,
it's very loose.
Yeah, it's all very loose terminology. Like there's no way to really pin it down. You know.
Yeah, I feel like I'm talking about shrooms and psychedelics, you know? Like I feel like unless you experience this thing, then you don't really know what I'm talking about. Like and hopefully, I mean, I try to do the best I could. But even then, it just gets a little shaky sometimes.
Mm.
I'm not the
Trying to speak to, well, because the external is much easier.
yeah.
Like I can show
It's
you, I can
tangible,
show you a bank account. I can show you something I built. I can show
Something
you
I've
something
wrote,
I've
yeah.
purchased. Like I can show you these things. But speaking to one another, which is interesting to me, but speaking to one another about the internal voyage, right? And just
Interesting.
in just the place that you're in, you know, whether it be like drug induced or not, it's still very interesting to try to pinpoint how someone's feeling and what it is they're talking about and how they get there, and then the paradox of working hard to get to a place of not working hard, which also shouldn't really be difficult to understand because that's just like retirement as well.
That's what I think. I think that we have retired early.
Yeah, so, but, you know, we're saying, okay, so do you work 60 years so that you can retire?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you just live those 60 years like you're retired?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's kind of a little bit of like what we're sort of talking about. It's like you can work really, really hard to get to a place where you realize that, okay, I don't have to work hard. Or maybe you don't have to work hard at all, like from the jump. Whenever that realization comes, like maybe you don't really have to work too hard. Maybe there's something that comes along in the working hard that can't be had without the working hard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's just figuring out what it is that you want to do with your time. I think we've gotten really lucky with each other, knowing that we don't want to have children, at least at this very moment. Same thing with pets, more so dogs that require a lot of attention. Therefore, we can go back to serving very easily and pay our bills very easily and still do whatever it is that we really want.
It is the lack of responsibilities.
Really, that's more so it. You know, and I want more of that. To tell you the truth, I don't want any responsibilities.
Couldn't have less responsibilities
Honestly.
unless we just stopped working.
I have a job that I go to, and I pay rent, and I pay my car insurance and my phone bill, and that's about all that I really worry about throughout the month that I have to do. Other than that, when can we play pickleball? When are we planning this next hike? Do we order pizza tonight? Or am I cooking? I feel very blessed. I feel very lucky.
Mark said that he wanted to just get on a boat
Right.
and just float around and take up odd jobs at different ports. You know what I mean? Catching fish, fucking being a blacksmith somewhere. Who knows?
I get what you're saying.
But yeah, I understand what he's saying. Like you're looking for that piece too. Like everyone's looking for that
Everybody's
piece.
looking for it, yeah.
And it just looks different. You're just looking to shut bullshit down and exist. You're looking for a space where you can comfortably exist as you are.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking for.
No, and it's just very cool to be able to have a partner to share that with as well. Because it's not like you can't curate that for yourself as a single person or maybe with friends. But if you're into romantic partnerships, that's a very cool thing to have. It's helpful too. It's not just like a nice add-on. It makes things definitely better in a different way.
Yeah, every type of relationship can suck and can be great. I just want to say that.
That is so true.
Every type of relationship that exists, no matter what type it is, 4 people in a relationship, 16 people in a relationship, whatever it is that's going on, there are some people out there right now that are going through the worst marriage ever. There's some people out there going through the best marriage. We couldn't imagine how good that marriage is. How good those people got it.
That's crazy.
The best marriage on the planet.
I don't know.
Just imagine how well those people know each other, how well they support each other, like all the things that they do. Like, it's the best. It's the best thing, right? That exists. Someone has that,
Right.
and someone has the worst.
What is the worst? I don't even
You killed them. They no longer exist. That was the worst. All the people that are killing their spouses, those ones. You know,
someone right now could be killing their spouse.
Oh, for sure. It's happening.
Imagine.
I just read a story like in Maryland, but it wasn't spouse. I think it was a 12 or 13-year-old killed his father, like stabbed his father to death. Yeah.
You know, I read something a few weeks ago. This like swept over the nation. If I remember correctly, this 19-year-old or 18-year-old and her 21-year-old boyfriend and their baby that was going to be born the next day, she had a scheduled C-section, got murdered by this young boy, also 19 or 20, I think, because they sold, like, something went wrong with a weed deal. So they killed the mom that was going to have a C-section the next day. I think she was 18. The boyfriend that was 21. And then the stepmom and the dad helped cover up the bodies. So all three of them are in prison. Like your dad and your stepmom. Try to help you do something.
Yo.
Let me tell you something. I've never had children. We've watched the movie. I don't see myself. I'm putting my child in jail. You kill somebody, you're out of here. I'm going to still love you. But I am not going down for that. I'm sorry. You may be my offspring. You may be the only thing I have in the world. But you have to go wherever it is that they're going to send you. Because I'm not going with you.
What if they're going to give them the death penalty in the state that you live in?
Well, if there's something that I can do to help, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to say just kill them, but I'm not going to give up my life incorrectly.
That's wild.
Because you decided. Because then I obviously had some failings as a parent. Maybe not. I don't know how that works. Morality in raising children if they kill someone. I'd like to think that my little Earl Lonnie Hooks Jr. wouldn't just be running around killing people.
It's wild when you think that, right? But every single person that has killed someone had a mom or dad.
Right. All of them.
They all had a mom.
Yeah, I don't know about children, man. They scare me. Yeah. Again, I think I see a possibility of adopting when I'm older. I definitely do see myself in like my 40s adopting some children.
Okay.
With you.
Nah, you don't get to throw the with you in there.
Well, what do you mean? We're going to be together.
You have them in that other house that you have.
Where are you going to be?
In the other house.
With them. With them.
And I love that it's them.
Yeah, it's multiple of them. They got up to each other. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what it's looking like out here for these other people, but I hope that they're doing well.
What other people?
Everyone.
Just people in general?
Yeah. It's rough out there.
Yeah, you find a lot of cool people. A lot of fun people out there. A lot of people are having a lot of fun.
People are so much fun. People are so much fun. That has been my favorite thing about going into a big restaurant once again. I love every single personality that I'm around because they're all so unique and also very similar, some of them at the same time. You
just get to observe so many things, like whether it be the coworkers and all the tea that's going around, all the things that they're saying, all the little who's fucking whose wife, who's
all the complaints.
Yeah, like who's fighting, who just found themselves on the bridge waving a gun. There's so much going on. Who just got fired? Who got demoted?
Remember that guy who went missing when we were at the other place?
Somebody went missing. It's like there's a missing person.
And then they found him like a week later.
In the woods somewhere.
His car was found. Everyone's sharing the flyer around.
There's all sorts of stuff going around all the time. But even in that, what's fun about serving is they're people. They're just people in the restaurant. And you just get to constantly see is like a first date type of deal. There's a new relationship going on here. This person's birthday. This family's out. How does this family act versus the other one? Is this couple angry at each other? Oh shit, they're fighting over at table 42. Look, they're fighting right now. They're fighting. Oh shit, he just asked for the check. She was gonna get another drink. He just asked for the check. He's done for the night. People. Because maybe people that haven't been in the service industry don't know this.
I think so.
you all are being talked about. Like
100%.
Just in case
If you stand out
you
for
go to a
whatever
restaurant
reason,
and you think that you're not being spoken about, even if you're not doing nothing crazy, there's a decent chance
someone's talking about you.
someone's
Yeah.
talking about you.
You're right.
Right, because for whatever, maybe they think you're cheap. Maybe they think that you're about to be a bad table. They haven't even spoken to you yet. They're just looking at you from, and
Maybe
they're
there's
just like,
a black guy in here, so they're gonna tip
they're just like,
badly.
oh God, black, I'm
Blacks.
getting a fucking table of black dudes. Like,
I
Jesus.
hate the blacks.
Or I'm getting the table of Mikey, clip that please. Or we're getting a table of young children.
I hate them bastards.
Like people, they have their types that they don't like, but you're definitely getting spoken about in some degree.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, you can learn so much. Like, oh, this is the type of family that has a dad that's like the militant type that, he's trying to get all the soldiers in line. Like, are you ready? You ready for your order? Like, what are you gonna? You gonna? You know what? You just bring us all this. We're gonna get this, and that. You can tell he's fed up with them.
Or you have the family, which I had last time, that just lets the kids do whatever.
Oh yeah, they pick up the
it's
sugar caddies, start dumping all the sugars
Fries
out.
cover the ground.
Yeah, fries everywhere. Yeah, just for people that maybe don't know, look, it takes time to put those sugar caddies together. I don't know why people just why they. You know what it is? They usually let them dump out because do y'all have at your restaurant? Do y'all have crayons and stuff?
No.
Exactly. So we don't got nothing for them to play with, and if the parents didn't bring something,
I don't
for
know
the
if
kids
you remember, we had coloring books and crayons at our other place.
so it doesn't matter.
And it doesn't fucking matter because they're still putting cheese and water and the rings and poop and pee and food in the cup.
Yeah.
No, it all happens to do with the child.
Yeah. But either way, just working at these places is interesting what you can gather from just being around and speaking to humans constantly all day long. Yeah, restaurants they're a fun gig.
And
They're really fun.
it's so much fun because you could be standing somewhere, as we have both found ourselves, just minding our business, picking up a drink from the bar, and someone comes up to you out of nowhere. It's like, isn't it crazy that someone's just a fucking dick for double seating us? It's like, I'm just picking up my beer, but like, you alright? Like, you need any help? Just constant. It's like, I can't fucking wait for this person to fucking get fired or leave.
So that realization at Dave & Buster's it brought to the forefront of my mind that right there.
Yeah.
That most of the time, these, like, what is disrupting the moment? Because I just think of, like, the possible moment where everyone's just having a good, they're just enjoying what is happening. They're realizing that it's happening. It's not something that is disrupting the narrative of what they thought was going to happen. So they're just seeing it. I'm looking at that potential and I'm just seeing it just shat all over and thrown in the trash because of all the expectations and things. Like, oh, this person just double sat me as though that doesn't happen. You got double set. Go do what needs to be done now. Ask someone if they can go and help greet a table while you're doing whatever the case is. But to see that it's not like someone came in here and killed everyone. And I know that I'm making this an extreme, but I just mean to say that so many things are a moment of resistance towards the current. And we're upset about them, and people get upset, like up in arms about things not turning out to be this way that it had panned out in their mind.
If you think about it from, I think, my experience and yours as well, speaking of the restaurant industry, that moment will never come.
What moment will never come?
Of just people being at peace and happy.
Well, no.
Because it's always... But I think that's also life. It's too slow. We're too staffed. I heard this guy that I've talked to you about before, essentially call him Papi Chulo. And when I first got hired, my first day, he was like, they're just hiring so many people. He's my first trainer. He's like, no one's going to make any money. I heard him the other day. They were asking him to run food. They were like, hey, man, can you come run food? He's like, you need more runners. You need more servers. Like, what's going on? Like, it's always this funny... It's too much. It's not enough conundrum, and I think that's life.
Yeah.
And it's like we only went to Puerto Rico 2 times this year instead of 4. We only went for 4 weeks instead of a whole month and a half. Yeah. Been there, done that, you know?
Yeah. That's a tough one to think your way through. I'll tell you why. Because you're essentially, and this is sort of the way of the Taoists, right? But is the expectations being dropped.
Yeah, just
but if the
kinda-
expectations are dropped, you're dropping something else too. And it's much larger word. Smaller in letters, but it's a larger word.
Ego,
Desire.
desire. Yeah. Yeah.
Because then what are you saying? That's the thing that is that's gonna be a hard stop in the thought process for people.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying is, because my expectations come from nothing but my desire
Right.
for
Whatever.
this to turn out this way, for me to make this amount of money, for this to be the situation in which I'm walking into. It's a desire for that. Are you saying that I should not desire good or nice things that make me feel good? Like, is that what you're saying? At that moment, that's where it's going to be. You're going to have the hardest resistance in that hypothetical
That's a hard
conversation.
one to explain.
In that hypothetical conversation.
That is a hard one to explain for sure.
Well, when I was saying the superior virtue not being superior for the sake of being superior,
Right.
right? That's kind of the same idea,
I think
which
so.
is difficult to understand, which is that things, because see, this sounds very meta. This sounds like the secret
Now,
type
can
shit.
you hold that?
Okay,
You can hold
I'll
it.
try.
Okay, the meta, remember, you're going to explain it.
Okay. Right. So I'll explain it a different way than the willow tree, because I did that with the episode with Nicole. I was talking about
okay.
the willow tree and the snow.
Oh, I like that one too. I think about that when I see snow in the branches now.
Right. So the willow tree, unlike the pine tree, is springy and spry. So it lets the wind, or it lets the snow fall and then springs back up, as opposed to just packing it on and resisting it and breaking off at some point in time. Same as the story in the Aesop's Fables, where you have the oak tree and the reeds.
Of course.
So you have these little whimsical reeds on the ground, and a huge gust of wind comes. The oak, big and strong, resists it and breaks, comes down, hits the ground, and is asking the reeds, how is it that you, so tiny and small, could stay intact with this huge gust of wind that came through, and I'm a mighty oak? And it broke me down. And the reeds just said, well, listen, you're strong and stubborn. So you tried to resist something that proved to be stronger than you. We go with the breeze. And so we're still here. And so it's that sort of story in this feeling that I've had innately for a very, very long time, which was, it always seemed to me, even in my very, very early 20s, it seemed to me that you could definitely plan things out and work towards that plan. And I think that I've seen people do small goals that add up to a big goal, and they achieve things that they've been wanting to achieve for years. It's not as if that does not exist. I've seen that happen. It may not look exactly the way you thought it was going to look along the way, or bring you all the things that you thought it was going to bring you, but I can see you achieving goals. But I've also had this innate understanding that doing things in the flow, doing things in congruence with the hypnotic rhythm of life, however you like to talk about this, right? Will bring you things. It's not you doing that for the sake of it bringing you things.
Right.
Just like the superior virtue. It just happens to be a consequence of. Things will come due to that way of living. You don't try to do it for that, because then you're meddling. Mm-hmm. Now your ego's in the way, and you're meddling with the thing, with the higher being, the higher way of living, right? That superior virtue.
Right.
So you're tainting it with your egotistical sort of ways. But if you're just doing the thing, then things come as a consequence. So I never worried. I never felt like I was going to be poor in
No, you haven't.
in any sense, right? Because I see myself as I feel wealthy.
You know what I just thought of it? It is very amazing to have been able to be a witness and attest to the fact that you have been this way for a very long time. This is very much newer to me, but I remember that day we were working at Salamander, we were serving brunch, which is a long day, and for some reason you hadn't gotten sat for like an hour or something, and you were just polishing in the back. And Naomi realized, like, oh shit, like I'm so sorry, and you're like, I'll go home. And she sent you home. Yeah, you've always been this person. But I get it now. You know, it's taken me much longer, way longer than it ever has taken you to achieve this place. But I think about it at work. You know, of wanting to have these moments where I think that I need to have a conversation and then realizing, you know, like every time you've wanted to have a conversation, it's probably not the right time to have a conversation. So I don't have the conversation and this thing happens, which is really nice. And then I get the 4-table section, but then it doesn't make sense. There's a 3-table section. Next thing I know, it's like, oh, hey, like you passed the test that I didn't know was taking place at the moment, obviously, because I don't know what's happening. So it's been quite an interesting, but very nice journey of just taking a seat back and having no expectations. And what is the other word you use? Desire for things. Because do I go into work wanting to leave with $40 after working 8 hours? No, I do not by any means. Am I going to do my best with what I am given there? For sure. And I think that not being annoying and in the way and complaining and asking for things just provides you a lot more. You know, and it is funny to say, but for me, I can't speak for you or anyone else, not growing up in that environment or experiencing people around me that behaved or thought that way, that doesn't make any sense in my mind, except of when I think of you. Like, I can't attribute that way of being to anything else other than you. So this is very, very different for me.
I think that it is very difficult. It is the dance with life.
It is difficult.
It means that you are constantly on the dance floor. Like you are moving and grooving, and you have to be aware of the steps that your counterpart life is taking. So you don't step on his feet. You don't
get in the way.
You don't get in the way. Like you got to be in that dance. It's a push and pull, and I don't. I do not, should say, condemn or really criticize people for not having that down.
No,
you know, at any moment, any of us, all of us, because it's a constant push and pull and twirl and jump and pirouette. Like you can't.
You know,
it's a lot.
It feels like
you may think that you need, like, if I have to stand up for myself.
Yeah, that's
like,
a huge
you
one.
know what I mean? Like this isn't me trying to be rude or just like I can't collaborate. Like I'm, you know what I mean? I don't want to come off like I'm uncompromising or anything like that. I don't want to be difficult. I just feel like I'm supposed to stand up for myself. So if you feel that in your heart, then that's what you're going to do. You're going to stand up for yourself.
That's unfortunately what I think happened with my coworkers the other day. When I think the other one really felt, again, I really thought she was coming from the best place she could. By no means did I think that she was just trying to raise issues out of nowhere. I think she felt slighted and disrespected, and she felt as though she needed to stand up with herself. Now, was it done incorrectly in the middle of service? Yes. Were they both speaking to each other kind of funny? Yes. Should it have been done very differently, and probably this never should have happened? Probably 100%. But that's what she had. It's just I need to let management know that how I'm being treated right now is not how I like to be treated. Like, however, because I don't even know how it happened or what happened. But however this person was treating me is not how I like to be treated, was the crux of the problem. Maybe it was a simple, just like reading her tone of voice. Maybe she just didn't like the crooked smile or the tone and the eye twitch.
Yeah, I guess that's the coolest thing about watching an elite mixed martial arts.
Oh, wow.
Mixed martial artist is you're getting someone that understands on a high degree of when to throw a punch,
Yeah.
when to step back, when to put their head down, when to grab, when to use force, when to rest. Like it's just constantly like you're in a fucking octagon with another full-grown person that's trying to kill you pretty much. And this is what you have to employ. This is what you have to figure out constantly. It's constantly, I think Joe Rogan calls it like very high stakes, like chess or something like that, with like, or very high stakes.
That would make sense.
Yeah, like chess with dire physical consequence or something like that. That's pretty much what he calls it.
That sounds intense.
Like you're trying to figure out this puzzle constantly. Someone's trying to choke you out or put an elbow in the top of your crown. Like they're trying to knee you in the jaw, whatever the case is, break your body down. And you're just in this thing constantly for minutes at a time before the next break. Like just minutes at a time trying to figure this thing out. And it has dire physical consequence. And you have to be at the top of your game. And
that's crazy.
You know, that's wild. And that's kind of like life in a sense. You're just trying to figure out all the time. And if you think that you're not in it, you're not aware.
Right.
Like that, like you're in that octagon all the time.
Like how you
so it's like, do you realize that you're in the game?
That's why it feels so nice to just live life now.
Mm-hmm.
I told you, I think I'm constantly. I think people don't see accidents happen as often as they do because they're not paying attention.
Car accidents?
Yeah. I see car accidents happen all the time. Or almost happen. Constantly.
Almost happen for sure. I don't know if I see the collisions all the time, but
not see the collisions, but like like waiting for the police or police just arriving. Like I'm always seeing a car accident somewhere.
Sometimes you'll see one and be like, how did this happen here? Like, how here did you guys finesse this?
I'll never forget turning at that Sully Road by the Battlefield Park and just seeing this guy completely take this red light. And just seeing in slow motion, it's like, oh, he's going to kill her. He's going to kill her. He's going to kill her. Fire. Like, wow. Like, everyone watched this live. It took seconds for you to get there and you still didn't stop. But I think a little bit of what we experienced when we played pickleball, not this past time, the time before, at least for me, I think you did as well. Like, I found my flow with pickleball. I'm getting exhausted running around this tennis ball court. Just running back and forth, and I definitely felt like I unlocked sort of a new level in the game of conserving my energy, of just really only paying attention to the ball. And now I feel comfortable with that little trick you showed me with the hand on the paddle, and my back hands are getting a bit better, and I'm not just hitting it out of bounds all of the time, but I'm able to just like find it. I don't have to look at the paddle to see where I'm hitting. It's like I know that I'm here. And every once in a while I miss, but now I feel like I'm flowing with the ball a little bit better. And that feels really nice to find flow in that. Feels very, very cool.
See, that's the thing, is that we've all felt it doing something.
Yeah, it's just
like,
life.
Yeah, but so to think that it can expand out to life isn't some extraterrestrial thought. You can think, like, even if you feel like you don't do well with that, or you don't feel that, you can conceptualize
for sure
that it is something that does expand out to life. If it can exist in the sport that you play, or the puzzle you put together at your home, the 1,000-piece puzzle, whatever that extracurricular activity that you do is, you can definitely adjust that size in your mind, conceptually speaking, and think, oh, this it may have an overlay on life that one can achieve and tap into and feel like they're doing this.
Do you think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we don't give each other enough grace as people?
How so? What do you mean?
Just thinking that it's easier because it's a sport, because it's a thing, because maybe it's something you can concentrate on versus like people cutting you off in traffic and being a more considerate person of obviously they're in a hurry for unknown things.
It's a little different when you get into the dire physical consequence that we just spoke about. So like if someone if you go to Walmart and you walk in there and grab a cart and someone else wanted that cart that you grabbed and then they walk up behind you and start choking you out because
that's different.
Like the grace that you give is going to be, it's probably not going to be so much in that moment.
But if it's like a regular people problem, you know, maybe I parked in the parking spot, but I didn't see you waiting because you were in a blind spot that you were going to go in. It wasn't because I was just trying to be an asshole, but you don't know that.
Well, that's why I brought up the dire physical consequence, because you're talking about being on the road. And so when
that was just one example, So
when someone cuts you off or someone does something wildly reckless on the road,
you have to fight or flight.
Yeah, like it comes because you're like, yo, you're about to kill all of us right now.
My life is in danger.
Yeah, like my life is in danger. So you act different. You act accordingly, some might say. Yeah,
no, that maybe isn't the best example. Yes, I just mean then existing in life.
But that's what I mean by the whole Dave and Buster's thing is I give people grace all the way down to doing, them just being upset that, they're in the Starbucks line too long or whatever. Like whatever the case is, like that's their problem. Like that's their priority. That's where they're at right now. They're upset about it. I give grace down to that. But I will say that there is something about dire physical consequence that rings off a little differently. Like when someone's about to harm you or kill someone like in your family, it rings off a little different than it being slow at work.
Yes.
Or whatever the case is on that tier of problems. But so to watch these non-physically consequential things happen often that take people away from the potential of goodness that could be in any given moment, that just suck it away. And they're just worried about all these kind of trivial, inconsequential things. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough because you just see them, you're like, wow, like I literally just witnessed you suck all the possible goodness out of this situation. Like outside of the way that you're interacting with it, the situation's great. It's just the way that you're looking at it. That's it.
You know the friend that I've told you about that Tootie all those years ago when she took those 3 Xanax on Christmas Eve, told like your grief is not as important as my grief. You remember that story? So this person, I'll call her Beyonce. That's what I used to call her as a joke because she loves Beyonce.
Okay.
And unfortunately, when we first met her as a group, when it was Cole, Ashley, myself, and Tootie, her mom had passed, I don't know how long before, but from cancer. It was like her mom was her life. She passed. And I remember the words like life sucker being used when it came to this person because she was in an awful space and she was so negative all the time. And that's kind of where Tootie was coming from. It's like, how can your mom have died from natural causes and you are just sucking the life out of everyone, but my daughter died from a heroin overdose and I can have a little bit more joy than you. Like, and it's not right or wrong, but that was the idea that she was working off of. But it was something that was very palpable when she came around. There were certain things that couldn't be spoken about because whilst they could have been happy to everyone else, they brought up only bad memories for her. So there was a constant life-sucking force if she was around certain situations. Now, if weed and alcohol were involved, that was a whole different story. Everything's great. But if she's sober, like life-sucking will be happening to some degree. And sometimes that is real life for a lot of people. It doesn't have to have some trauma attached to it. Maybe it's just... But whatever you want to happen is just not happening constantly and you're just bitter all the time. Or maybe it's because you're working 3 freaking jobs and you're exhausted and you kind of hate your life and your partner, and all you can do is come to work and complain about everything and everyone all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I worked at Carrabba's when I was really young. Looking back now, I think I've told you this. I would love to be able to have like little clips and videos of me at certain moments in time, because I know how people reacted around me. So that gives me some insight. But like, I'm not looking at Von Marie at 19 or 20. Like, I don't know what that looks like. I remember my mom for a long time. She was like, if you hate people so much and you hate your job, like, why don't you quit? So you hate what you do, you hate everyone you work with, and you hate people. Like, why are you serving? And I was like, oh, shut up. You're so stupid, Mom. What are you talking about? But I remember hating my job and thinking people were awful, you know, and doing the thing that not everyone, but a lot of young people do. It's like, oh, I fucking hate everybody. I hate people and people are the worst.
Of course.
You know, you do that thing.
Yeah.
And it took my parents a long time to realize that I outgrew that sort of stage for me, because until a few years ago, they were like, oh, like you just hate people. And I was like, no, I don't. I really like people. So it's funny to have that switch. But yeah, life is really hard, man. Like, all this just kind of comes to the conclusion that it's really hard, and I feel very thankful to be here. To feel whatever it is that is happening around me. It feels very nice. To just allow the moments to be whatever the moments are.
I think that's a good place to leave off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
All right. This was a good coffee mimosa session.
More morning sesh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, babe. This was nice.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
I hope you enjoyed some of it.
Thank you all so much.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Peace, everybody. Peace.
Peace.